ChatGPT can actually create a brand voice style guide that you can pass along to team members who might be creating content for you or writing copy for you down the road. Literally, you don't even have to do any research into what you should put into your brand voice style guide. ChatGPT already knows what it looks like. And at the end of this process, you could ask ChatGPT, hey, can you please create a brand voice style guide for my brand based on everything we've discussed? And it will do that for you in literally like 5 seconds. I swear, it's crazy how fast this thing is. Hey, my feel good friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I've just got to warn you right now, we are going to be nerding out in today's episode. I am so excited because we are talking about the bread and butter of your brand voice. And if you've listened to past Feel Good Social podcast episodes, you may already know this about me, but I completely geek out when it comes to talking about how we can hone the essence that is your brand. Hone your brand's unique personality and voice, all of those human elements that make your brand you. Because I know how important it is to show up online in a way that feels human and authentically you. That is how we attract your perfect ideal customers. That is how we create consistent messaging across the board, from your website to your social media. That is ultimately how we boost your sales and make the difference that you want to make in the world. Your brand voice is one of those foundational elements that truly can make all the difference. And today I'm going to be walking you through 3 very actionable, in-depth steps for honing your unique brand voice so that you can understand it, so you can pass it along to a team member who might be creating content for you or writing copy for you. And I do just want to say, I have been personally doing a lot of research for brand voice recently. If you know Feel Good Social at all, you might remember that I have done a lot myself for Feel Good Social's brand voice. I have hosted workshops in the past that help other entrepreneurs hone your unique brand voice for sure. This is not a topic that is new to me. However, recently I have been doing research for how we can hone our brand voice when it comes to using Chat GPT and AI technology in our business. So if you haven't heard me yapping about our new podcast yet, it's called Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs. And basically we're talking about how we can start using AI as solopreneurs in an approachable, easy to understand way, because I know AI can be a little overwhelming, right? And one of the things I've been hearing from a lot of people is ChatGPT just doesn't sound like me. Like, yeah, it can write up a bunch of content and come up with ideas for me and all that different stuff. But if I tell it to write an email, the email still doesn't sound like me. So I have to go back in and rewrite it anyway. Like, is ChatGPT even worth it? And here's the thing, my friend, I have been using ChatGPT a lot. And what I have found is that if we can actually hone our voice with ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT exactly what our authentic, unique brand voice is, then, oh yeah, it is so worth it and it is so helpful. And actually trying to research and learn how I can get ChatGPT to understand my brand voice, I have found that ChatGPT is a really helpful tool for helping me understand my own brand voice, right? Not only is this process helpful for getting ChatGPT to write like me, but also ChatGPT has made a lot of observations about my brand that has been helpful for me in understanding and being able to communicate my brand voice and create like a brand style guide for my brand voice. So anyway, today's episode is going to be getting super nerdy with brand voice. And I'm also going to be talking about how you can get this free, awesome AI tool, ChatGPT, to help you in the process bounce ideas around with it. The last thing I want to say to you before we dive into this is if you do enjoy this episode, make sure that you go check out Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs podcast. There's lots of episodes that you can binge right now. I have linked it in the show notes. And also make sure that you share this podcast or Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs with one of your biz buddies who could also use to listen to it, because that's how we're going to keep growing our awesome community of down-to-earth entrepreneurs. All right, without further ado, let's dive right in. Hey friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. All right, my friend. The first thing I wanted to chat about was to cover the importance of brand voice, because sometimes we just feel like it's not as important as social media marketing. It's not as important as getting your website up or like selling your offer, whatever. But here's the thing, your brand voice is one of those building blocks that you can take and apply to your social media content, that you can take and apply to your website, and really does make a difference in making your brand magnetic to your ideal customers. It makes you unique, it makes you recognizable, and not only attracts your ideal customers, but it keeps them coming back for more, especially when you fully embody it and you show up consistently in that way over time on all of your platforms. Plus, once you fully understand your brand voice, you can create a brand voice style guide that you can pass along to team members who might be creating content for you or writing copy for you down the road. And that is going to be so helpful for having them understand who your brand is and be able to create content and copy that sounds like your brand, that feels like your brand. And the other big important point is that in this digital age of AI technology, when robots are quote unquote taking over the mainstream world and people are having AI help them in their marketing and their messaging and all that jazz, authenticity is even more huge than it's been in the past. With all of these people who are using all of this AI technology, all of a sudden, there's a likely chance that people who aren't paying attention, that people who don't care about authenticity are going to all start sounding the same. Robots are actually writing a lot of people's copy now, which means that if we're not careful, we all could really start to sound like robots. But what that means for you, because you are an authentic, down-to-earth entrepreneur who cares, who wants to show up in a meaningful way, when you hone your authentic brand voice and you make sure that it feels human, it's going to set you even more apart from the crowd and do even more to attract your people. So that leads me to my next point, which is somewhat ironic because Chat GPT, which is technically an AI tool / robot, can actually help us by analyzing it. It can tell you, oh, I've noticed that your formatting looks like this, or oh, I think that your brand voice sounds a little bit like this, or your brand sense of humor is a little bit this way, right? Chat GPT can verbalize things about our brand voice that we might not be able to put into words very easily ourselves. And so ChatGPT can actually be a really awesome tool to help you hone and understand your own brand voice, which I just always laugh about because I'm like, okay, well, we want to hone our brand voice to not sound like a robot, and here ChatGPT, the robot, can help us. It's just ironic to me, and I giggle every time. And then at the end of the process, ChatGPT can actually create a brand voice style guide for your brand. Literally, you don't even have to do any research into what you should put into your brand voice style guide. ChatGPT already knows what a brand voice style guide looks like. And at the end of this process, you could ask ChatGPT, hey, can you please create a brand voice style guide for my brand based on everything we've discussed? And it will do that for you in literally like 5 seconds. I swear, it's crazy how fast this thing is. Plus, on top of that, once you do hone your brand voice with ChatGPT, it can way more easily replicate your brand voice and write copy that sounds more like your brand. So once you use ChatGPT in this honing process, it will be able to more easily write social media posts for you, write emails for you that sound more like you, and it will become an even better assistant for you. So all of this is to say that I do recommend that right now you go get ChatGPT if you haven't yet. It's chat.openai.com. It is free. There is a paid version, but for this practice, we can just use the free version unless you want to go for the paid version, which is awesome too. And before we do dive into these tips for discovering your brand voice, I do want to quickly share, I have been creating a brand persona for ChatGPT mini course and style guide. This is going to be an even more in-depth mini course that you can do in 1 hour that will help you hone your brand voice. I'm going to be giving specific prompts, sharing 2 different proven methods for how you can hone your brand voice. Plus, it comes with a style guide that actually has a very long list of brand voice descriptors, along with examples of what they look like in Chat GPT and how and when you can use them to describe your brand's voice. So if you do enjoy the tips I'm sharing in today's episode and you're like, okay, but I want more, I want someone to hold my hand through this process, I want the exact prompts that Kinsey is putting into Chat GPT, I want the style guide list, head over to feelgoodsocial.com/style guide. There is a wait list that you can add your name to, and that will get you an invite to our brand persona for ChatGPT live workshop that is actually happening in 2 weeks. And if you're listening to this episode a little bit later down the road, then you will find our brand persona style guide and mini course at that link too. So it's feelgoodsocial.com/style guide. That's where you can either add your name to the wait list for this style guide or go ahead and snag it if you think it might be helpful for you. Okay, so the first tip for honing your authentic voice is to audit your existing content. Take a look at the stuff that you've already written, at what you've already got out there, and consider, what is my brand voice based on this content? This is a really great method to use if you do feel like you already have an established brand voice and a unique way of writing, is to literally just think, how have I already been showing up for my people? What is the way that I already naturally talk? And then just get thoughtful and analytical when it comes to that stuff. Take a look at a few different types of content. So that could be your social media captions versus your website copy, persuasive writing versus inspirational or storytelling writing, right? Like these different types of content might look slightly different, which is actually something that I dive into in our brand persona mini course. But right now, what I'd love for you to do is just take a look at copy that you've already written and consider what's working and what's not working for you, right? Like what truly embodies your brand's vibe, your brand's voice. Maybe if you're looking at social media captions, like what was a caption that was super engaging versus what was a caption that was kind of a dud, maybe, which there's a lot of different reasons it could be a dud. So don't beat yourself up for that. But anyway, this is all a part of the analysis. Also consider, what tone of voice do you use? Do you have any catchphrases that you use over and over? What's your writing style and formatting choices and all that different stuff? Just get super thoughtful and analytical about it and write down some notes of things that you notice about your brand voice. So when it comes to using ChatGPT to help you with this is where it can get really fun. You can feed ChatGPT different types of your writing and ask it to analyze your writing for different things, formatting, tone of voice. You need to tell it the different contexts, all that different stuff. And once again, in our new brand persona for ChatGPT mini course, I do dive deeper and also lay out the step-by-steps of how you can do this with the prompts that you can use for ChatGPT, right? So if you want someone to just hold your hand and walk you through this specific process, go put your name on the wait list for our new bundle that's coming out next week at feelgoodsocial.com/style guide. Now, the second tip that I have for you for honing your brand voice is to describe your brand's persona. It's kind of approaching the same thing from 2 different angles, right? One, you can analyze your own copy that you've already written and consider, what is my brand voice? And then 2, you can come at it from the angle of describing who your brand is and what you sound like. So what I want you to do is start with writing down your brand's foundation. And this means, what does your brand do? Who are your ideal customers? What does your brand care about, right? All these things make up those foundational elements of your brand that are the building blocks for your brand's voice. And once you have those foundational elements for your brand, then you need to start thinking about your brand as if it were a human. Describe your brand as if it were a person. Who would it be, right? Would it be kind of like Oprah? Would it be like your cool aunt? Maybe you're throwing off best friend vibes. Like, who would your brand be if it were a person? This not only helps to hone the voice and the words that your brand uses, but it also helps to establish the relationship that your brand has with your ideal customers and who you're speaking to. And then the third thing I want you to consider is the voice descriptors that might reflect your brand. Is your brand professional or conversational? Is your brand friendly, enthusiastic, comforting, calming? A mix of all of these different things? I don't know. You tell me. Think about different words that could describe your brand's personality, voice, the way you speak to people. And once again, I'm just geeking out because in my style guide, I have a long ass list of descriptive words that you might use to describe your brand. And it's so cool that there are so many of them because you can mix and match them and use them in lots of different ways until you hone your brand's specific unique voice. But the style guide is really helpful because sometimes it's hard to come up with those words ourselves and or truly understand what they mean. Because friendly to me does not mean the same thing as friendly to Chat GPT. I have found that out, my friend, by trying to hone Feel Good Social's brand voice. Whenever I just straight up put friendly in Chat GPT, it comes across as like, hey, y'all, like jazz handsy. And Feel Good Social's a little bit drier and wittier than that. And so finding out what magic mixture of these tone descriptors really make the essence of your brand's voice so that you're not just like, howdy, you're like, hey, friends, welcome to the Feel Good Social podcast, right? Okay, so how can ChatGPT help you with this? Well, you can feed these descriptors into ChatGPT and have it help you write copy, right? And you can hone your own brand voice with ChatGPT in that way. So I can tell ChatGPT, hey, I am a whatever, friendly, conversational, charming, witty brand voice. I use emojis sparingly. I like to use things like asides and exclamation points when I'm trying to prove a point. I use a lot of line breaks to format to make my copy more easy to read. These are things that I would tell ChatGPT when I am honing Feel Good Social's brand voice. And I didn't know all of these different descriptors before I created the style guide for ChatGPT, right? So that is how the style guide can really help you hone it. It's all these things that you don't know, that you didn't know were descriptors, but that you can use to really nail down your brand voice, and especially for ChatGPT in a way that it understands. But even if you don't have the style guide, you can still just feed these descriptive words into ChatGPT and ask it to produce copy for you and slowly tweak it here and there and slowly make it sound like your brand until finally you can have it give you a description that completely sounds like your brand. So the third tip I have for you is to test and tweak throughout this process. You may have already picked up on this, but you are probably not going to nail your brand voice the very first go around, right? The first prompt that you put into ChatGPT is not going to completely sound like your brand. So the most important thing we could do when it comes to honing our brand voice, especially when we're using ChatGPT, is to make sure that it's a back and forth process of testing different things out and tweaking things here and there, telling it to be more of this, to do less of this, so that you can find that essence and ChatGPT can produce copy that sounds like you, that you don't have to completely rewrite every time, right? The main takeaway that I want you to get from this tip is to not get frustrated and just give up the very first time ChatGPT writes copy for you, because your brand is not basic. There are a lot of nuances to your brand's unique voice. There's a lot of nuances to your brand's personality. And so you can't expect ChatGPT to get it right the first time. But the magic is that the deeper you go with this honing process, when you hit the gold, it is so magical and it saves you so much time and it helps turn ChatGPT into your best assistant ever, right? And man, I just get so excited. So make sure that you are honing, tweaking, doing all the things until you finally get some copy that sounds exactly like your brand. And that is when you ask ChatGPT to create a brand voice style guide for you. This is something that you can keep for yourself to keep your own copy and messaging aligned as you are creating content for yourself. This is something that you can pass along to your team members. And this is something that you can feed back into ChatGPT in your custom instructions and or in the chat windows that you open up, so that as it is helping you moving forward, it is going to remember what your brand voice sounds like, replicate it, and just make your life easier and help you in the best way possible. So I hope that this episode was helpful. I know I did give a lot of in-depth tips, and there's even more to this process. So if you are interested in a step-by-step way that takes maybe an hour so that you can hone your brand's authentic voice and move forward with Chat GPT, knowing there's going to be writing copy that sounds as much like you as possible, then definitely head to feelgoodsocial.com/style guide. I have linked it in the show notes below. That is where you can add your name to the waitlist, or if you're listening in the future, you can go ahead and snag our brand persona mini course and style guide. And this is going to help walk you through the step-by-step process of 2 proven methods for honing your brand voice on ChatGPT. It includes the style guide with all of the descriptors that can not only help you hone your brand voice, but also gives you insight into context words that you can use when you're asking ChatGPT to write sales copy for you or write different types of copy in different contexts. And if you're new to ChatGPT, it also includes things like what is ChatGPT 101, a ChatGPT glossary, all of these different things to help you better understand ChatGPT so that you don't feel overwhelmed by it. Once again, head to feelgoodsocial.com/style guide. That's where you can find our waitlist and or the style guide itself. And the sooner you sign up, the better, because we are hosting a live workshop where I will walk you through the process of honing your brand voice for ChatGPT. It's happening on October 10th. And when you add your name to the waitlist now, you will get an invite to that workshop for free. So once again, it's feelgoodsocial.com/style guide if you want the mini course and style guide that is going to help your ChatGPT sound just like you. All right. If you had any aha moments or takeaways from this episode about your brand voice, I would love to hear them. Hit me up on Instagram at feelgoodsocial. It would make me so happy to hear what your brand voice is described as and all that stuff. I love it. I geek out about this stuff. So definitely send me a message and I will be sure to follow you back and just keep cheering you on over there. All right. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and I will catch you next time I catch you. Thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodsocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodsocial.com for all the goods.